I've been speaking Tamil for my whole life, but one thing that frustrates me is that I'm not able to read or to write it. My name is pulandevii. I do create content primarily in French because I'm based in France and I'm French, but before that I'm Indian. I'm a content creator, I'm an artist. I use my social platform to share my relationship with Indian culture, especially Tamil culture. I do share my opinions, book reviews, movie reviews related to India. I also analyze diversity in representation when it comes to Indian people in France, for example, or how the way India is portrayed in media, for example, French media, for example. YouTube has been a platform that is nurturing my creativity, but also the way I share how I navigate through my Indian culture. Living in France, I am using social media to document my cultural reconnections to my roots and to share it with many people, with Indians, but also non-Indian people who just are interested in how a person can reconnect to their culture. Whether it is through food, through movie, through culture, through festivals, but with always a sense of critique and analysis rooted in anti-racism and a decolonial lens. It's the very first time I'm doing a video in English since I told you that I'm doing primarily content in French. This video I wanted to reach people beyond France with Tamil heritage. When it comes to learning and Tamil heritage, I wanted to share it with more people, I guess, so I can find a community worldwide. So in 2025, I've decided to finally learn how to write and read Tamil. I think this topic might resonate with more people. And also the reason why I am doing it in English, it's because I've been looking for videos like this on YouTube, but somehow I couldn't find any. I think I know why. I'll explain that in a bit. There are lots of videos about learning languages, but I haven't found any in Tamil in particular. I enjoy watching progress language learning videos. I do remember two in particular. One was a girl who learned Urdu for her mother, a heartwarming video. And the second one is a guy who was learning his mother's mother tongue, which is Tagalog, a language from the Philippines. I really loved those videos. I'm not going to do it in that way if you have ever watched it, because in those videos they are doing it in secret and they want to surprise actually the person. Here in my case, I have no one to surprise except for myself, but I really want this video to resonate with other Tamil born abroad. What I want to say in this video is that you can still learn a language, especially your mother tongue, even you are after 30s. I think all we need is the motivation and the time. And that is why I'm documenting this on YouTube, so other people might, I hope, relate to my case, and they'll also jump in and learn along or share their progress or just follow around, So as I've told you, I've always been speaking Tamil. A little bit of context. I'm Indian. I was born in France. I was brought up in France and I'm still living in France. I'm a child of Indian Tamil immigrants. They immigrated from Pondicherry to France in the 80s. And in order to understand this migration, you need to know that in 1674, France has colonized several territories in India. In one of the 5 territories, there is Pondicherry. So it was quite obvious that the people in Pondicherry would immigrate to France at some point. It is like a logical suite. So there's been some kind of connections with France way before they settled in France. So my grandfather from my mother's side has been working for the French rule in other French colonies. And in my father's side, they've been enrolled in diverse military battalions. So they have been participating in the war effort. I have grandfathers who have been imprisoned during the Indochina War. There has always been not a joyful connection with France. And today our presence and my presence is not a surprise, even though people seem to not understand why some people are in some countries in a post-colonial world. But as I've explained to you, I think it's quite obvious. So back to Tamil. I have been speaking it very early because in both of my families, the elders couldn't speak French. I had to learn very fast Tamil and to be able to participate in conversation with my grandmother, for example, or some of my uncles and my auntie. I didn't learn it through a formal, conventional way with a teacher or at school. I learned it with my parents. They would talk to me, and I think I'll just catch the words with them, but also with my family abroad. So that would be an aspect of it. And then we were so much immersed in Tamil culture. So my parents are Tamil cinema lovers. We would watch a lot of Hollywood movies, even the ones that we were not maybe supposed to watch. Maybe we were too young to watch them. Also, they love the music. So we would always listen to Tamil music. These helped me a lot to understand Tamil, but also to speak it, and also to distinguish some nuances between dialects and the more formal way of speaking it. But during that time, there was no obligation for us, my brother and I, to learn to write or to learn to read it. I don't remember my mother imposing us to learn the language or being regretful that we didn't read or write. I do remember though that I've been trying to learn. I do remember my mother buying us some notebooks to learn Tamil, and you would have images and the words next to it. The book wasn't enough to continue learning, and I don't recall me being determined to do it because Tamil wasn't necessary at that time, and if I needed to know something, then I would ask my mother. I do remember she would read her Tamil magazines like Ananda Vigadan or Kumudam, and I would just flip through pages because I couldn't understand. But then there would be pages with my favorite celebrities, and I'll be like, and tell me what is written here because I cannot read. It hasn't been a bother at all. One thing I do recall is that my aunt telling me that I do speak like a fisherman's wife. And I've always wondered, what does that mean? When I was a child, she made me understand that if you speak in a certain way, like a fisherman's wife, then your Tamil is not classy, or your Tamil is not seen as normal. And what I thought at that time was that I was perceived like a local. But when you say local in Tamil, it means like you are a kind of like you are an inferior, and coming from the country, coming from a remote area. You are clueless, like you're not very smart. And I will tell you why I think that. It's because she would always say, you don't look like a foreigner. In my background or in my family, they would say, for people who come from abroad, for example, my brother and I, we were considered as foreigners. She wouldn't even say Indian foreigners. She would just say foreigners. And for them, it is like a superior class of people, where we live in a wealthy country, we live in a classy country, we have manners, we are well brought up. But everything with a sense of class in it, and everything with a sense of classism, but always on the higher hand. Not like foreigners, not like a bad thing. It was a great thing, sometimes even like superior than herself, which is a bit degrading, I guess, to her. Say that I speak like a fisherman's wife, and I didn't know how I was supposed to take it. For me, I thought, oh, I speak well then if I speak like a fisherman's wife because she's a local person. She's a person from India, so I guess I speak well. I was 8 at that time, and I couldn't really understand the nuances and the intricacies behind the discourse. But I think now I do sense a bit of casteism and degrading the fishermen's community somehow, because for her, when I would speak in Tamil, I wouldn't be as dignified as she wanted me to be, because I was learning, and for sure I would make mistakes and I would speak in a certain way, but I would just catch how people speak on the streets and in movies and in shops and on the phone, radio. So it would be a mix of it since it wasn't a formal education. But still, the comparison is very, very odd. you have different ways of speaking Tamil. If you go to Tamil Nadu, actually, you will see that people in Pondicherry, they have a certain way of speaking. You will see in Tamil Nadu that various communities have their own dialects, but sometimes it's not even dialect, it's just the accents and pronunciation, how they speak it. It will be different from another area. It is like when you speak English in the UK, you have different accents, whether you come from Leeds or you are from Manchester. For example, in France, we do have accents and pronunciation differences according to regions. The fact that she was saying I don't look like a foreigner is that because I was darker than everyone in my family. And also, I think it's because I would blend it so much. My mother didn't allow us to bring clothes from France. When we would go to India, we wouldn't wear jeans and pants, trousers, and things that would just remind us from France. Instead, she would take us to some shops in Pondicherry, and we would do some shopping there. And I would gladly choose churidar and pavada at that time. And I really love wearing Indian clothes, actually. I mean, I loved wearing the pattu, having the flowers on my head, having mardani on my hands. And I don't know, I always felt like I was at home, and that nobody can disturb me in how I want to wear all these things. And I always wanted to wear everything so loudly. For example, when it came to the flowers, I wanted to have lots of flowers. I wanted to have a big put. I think I wanted to blend in, but also I think, the culture, as I wouldn't have that much of opportunities back in France. So for all these reasons, somehow I wasn't this ideal of a foreigner. And I think for her foreigner, especially Indian foreigners, I have noticed them in Pondicherry. So first of all, they would all wear Western clothes. And I'm talking about the end of 90s, 2000s. At that time, Western clothing was not a thing yet in Tamil Nadu especially. See, you would notice people when they wear different clothing. They would be so recognizable on the street. I don't know, they would always carry some kind of arrogance as well. I don't know if it was that. I'm sorry if it wasn't. But they would carry some kind of arrogance and being like, like, I don't know, I don't like this place, or I don't like the way the children are begging for money, for example, on the streets, or, oh, this is nasty, or I don't know. I really remember, I have a vivid image of a two girl and a guy walking on the streets, and I felt like, oh, this girl wouldn't like me because I'm wearing all these things, and I enjoy being a local, and I enjoy being on the streets, even though it is smelly or nasty, as they would say. I didn't really fit in the image of what a foreigner is for all these reasons, even though I would have some difficulties to speak in Tamil, because I know that I don't know all the words, especially at that time. I think it's the effort of just saying words, It's the same process for every languages when you learn them. It's very hard to have conversation, but also from a confidence point of view, you are not really confident within yourself to speak out loud. I've been learning linguistics, English and German, for at least 13 years. It's been something that has been following me middle school, high school, university, bachelor and master. So, and there's always been a time where that would be, the tipping point where you go from not being able to speak a language and then have a conversation just by practicing, by throwing lots of words. And I think this is something that I've developed with Tamil speaking. I think for my mother, she was already happy that I spoke a bit of Tamil, that I would be able to have a conversation with her family members, that she didn't impose as much. I know that for some families, some people have stopped talking in the mother tongue to avoid confusions while learning French, for example. And it has been proven that actually there is no problem navigating between several languages. It is actually recommended to expose our children to multiple languages, and that you have more and more schools that allow children to learn earlier languages. So in my case, I don't really know. Maybe it was a lot of work to teach me. So I didn't have a proper formal education. And I'm saying this because I think the context of migration here plays a role, because when I compare with Tamil from Elam, who fled Sri Lanka during war to escape from the genocide happening there, they fled from there to several countries in Europe, especially Norway, France, the UK, were happening solely based on their ethnicity. So when they arrive in a country, in their host country, the only thing that you want to latch on is to your immaterial stuff like culture, language, religion. And I think that is why they create lots of Tamil schools, Tamil Chole, Tamil Sangam, and they perpetuate culture, cultural practices, religious festival, reading session, learnings, and so many things. And I think it's like a mission for people from Elam to share and to transmit their culture to their children, because there is this sense of urgency and there is this sense of survival that wasn't the same when people migrated from Pondicherry, for example. They migrated for maybe for better opportunities or economic reasons. For example, both of my parents didn't struggle back home. They came to France looking for opportunities and a new life. So the context is different. They didn't have the same reasons as the Tamil from Elam. Not this deep survival sense. I think that's why my parents didn't impose that much to learn, to speak it, and to write it. I guess it is also because there was no Tamil schools next to my home, and they were not interested into doing the effort to put the kids to schools. It means that you have to look for a school, and at that time you didn't have internet, so you have to make connections, you have to know people, you have to speak to people. And I guess it was already overwhelming for two young people who didn't know each other first, who were just trying to settle in a country where the language is a big barrier. And I'm not criticizing, I'm just comparing people my age from India who were born and brought up like me in France. I have more difficulties in talking in Tamil and writing and reading it. Of course, you cannot generalize it. But you have people who think that, who are made to think that speaking Tamil, their mother tongue, is a shame. I've seen people who showed shame and arrogance when it comes to speak in Tamil. I remember having two cousins coming from India to France, but they were already teenagers at that time. So they were older than me, and I was at a gathering at their place, and I said something in Tamil. One of them said, "Oh, you like to speak in Tamil, right?" And that was like so weird. He was like condescending. And I was just like, yeah, you are Indian and you are Tamil, and you just came to France, so I want to speak in Tamil with you. For them, it was more a pride to speak in French, since Pondicherry is a former French colony. People are really attached to this special relationship Pondicherry is having with France. They have what we call a colonial hangover. I'm not asking them to be in the rejection of the French idea in France, but I don't know why you have to put it above your head and humiliate people who just want to learn Tamil and just enjoy speaking in Tamil. For me, it's very important to learn how to write and how to read Tamil, because it is part of my reconnection process, cultural reconnection process. I really want to be able to decipher letters, but I also want to enjoy the richness of Tamil culture, especially the poetry, the books written by Tamil authors. And there's been so many books and so many writings that I haven't been able to enjoy yet because of the barrier of language. And the reason why I'm putting it online is that I want to document my process with you. I want to keep myself accountable, and I want to send a message to other Tamil people who want to learn maybe their mother tongue, that they're not alone, that we can do it together, that I can share also my learning process, book recommendation, for example, platform that I find online, or teachers that I find online. I even bought a new book so I can start from scratch. There's been so many attempts in the past to learn Tamil. I would start, always by the same things, writing E. I mean, writing letters is not the difficult part. Reading them is forming the syllables and forming the words is difficult, and then reading them is difficult. I think the only word that I can recognize is essay. If you remember, I told you that I was immersed in Hollywood culture, and when we would watch movies, there would be the titles, the generic, and you would see A.R. Rahman, and I would always because they would put it in English words, in English letters, and when it comes to A.R. Rahman, I would recognize that the word above A.R. Rahman is essay. It's the only thing I think I can recognize. I can't even spell my name. I can't even write Amma, for example. And I think this is the first word you learn to write. I'm very excited actually to be starting this journey, to be sharing it with you as well, because I hope I'll find a community who would understand the struggles, but also who would help me in my learning process. I don't want it to be a regret, not to be able to read or write it. I want it to be a full circle. And for me, when it comes to a language, you need to master it. So I have two missing, but I'm really determined to be working on it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know who is going to watch this video. I really hope you tag along, you participate in my learning process. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up button. It really helps the channel to deploy my video on other people's feed. And this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow so you can continue seeing my progress. Please take care, and I will catch you in the next video. Nandri vanakkam.